Hello, hello. Welcome to Friends and Authors Live. I'm Rosalinda Roman, and
I'm Oshvias.
I always never know if I should introduce you, if you should introduce you. It's always slightly awkward, but it's par for the course because I am literally coming to you from a hotel room in Dublin, but I'm not on the hotel internet because that failed multiple times. You and I have been trying to get this going for the last at least hour. I'm actually on a woman who works here named Molly's cell phone hotspot right now. And you gotta love the Irish. Like I said, well, but I couldn't do it in the bar because it was too loud. And she said, I'm just taking it to your room. It's fine. I'm like, I love them here. They're so nice.
As an experienced father, I sensed this would take some time, so I made myself some coffee and folded some laundry. So I got stuff done while we were waiting.
That's amazing. Well, let me move the mic thing out of the shot. I literally packed everything up, brought it down to the bar where my husband is drinking not Guinness because we've had way too many Guinnesses, and he's like, I need to find a beer that I like better. Because he enjoyed it. Guinness is better here in Ireland, but he's not a dark beer drinker. So anyway, Ireland is on my mind. Obviously, it's my last night here. You're already gone, right? You're not in Ireland anymore.
I'm back in Germany.
Yeah, which is good and bad. I'm glad you're happy to see your son, your family, and also, we're coming, they call it the con crash. You come down from the conferences and you have like the period after the conference. That's, it's a little bit of you're with people at the conference who are doing a lot of the things you're trying to do. And it's nice to be in space, in community. And there's a little bit of a crash afterwards where you have to kind of shift back to reality.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've actually had kind of an ongoing conversation with folks from the conference. I flew back with Zoe on the same flight. So we were trying to sit together and write in London for a couple of hours. And then I reached out to one of the guys from the presentations on videos, and he gave me a few tips. And then, of course, our friend, the shy, not so confident British guy, he had his course on Facebook ads. And I tried some of his suggestions, and they're already working. And so
Amazing.
I texted him on Facebook, and I told him he was a rock star. And he 2-word replies, I know.
And we may as well say, because, there's no one like him. That's Steve Higgs, and he is a prolific author and amazing with Facebook ads. And he's basically helped us to learn how to do all the things. It's much more effective for you so far than it is for me, but we're not quitting. And my husband went to his session. So by the way, let me back up for a second. For those of you that are new here, this is our weekly show, Friends and Authors Live. We do this every Tuesday. And this time we actually just spent last weekend together in Ireland, in Shannon, where we were at the Ireland Publishing Show, which, by the way, they've changed the name now. It's Indie Network in Ireland for next year. They changed the name for next year. And it was amazing. And now it's all we're thinking about. We're buzzing with memories. So I thought I would share, if you will let me, just to give people an idea of what the venue looked like, not inside, but in the back. I went for a run the last morning I was there, and I thought you all would enjoy to see what that looked like. So let me lose. This is, right behind the hotel. It's so peaceful.
It is, but you're kind of expecting like the Loch Ness Monster to come carrying out.
Right, especially once you look and there's the castle, right?
There's a castle. I know that's in Scotland, but, close.
I don't know. I did feel like any minute now something was going to come at me from the lake at certain moments. So that was fun. And then I sometimes showing you the scenery. That was the conference hotel. It's called Rhine, R-I-N-E. It used to be Dromeland, something like that. And so they changed the name. It was a wonderful place for this conference. They had like a main stage and then also like a side room for workshops. And that's where you were talking about. You went to Steve Higgs's workshop on Facebook ads and building an you'll have to talk about that one because I actually had hit a wall and I was done, and I actually made my husband sit in on that one because I couldn't last any longer. But that was one of your favorite highlights, from what I understand.
Yeah, no, Facebook ads is a lot of work. It bears fruit, but some of the techniques and it's just that's what genius is. It's people who, after they tell you what they've thought of, you're like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? It's so obvious, right? But that's basically Steve Higgs. Everything
In a nutshell. Yeah. He's a smart guy, and there were so many smart people at the conference. And I actually got at the end, I went around and recorded some interviews that we'll use in the show from time to time. And I thought the one that I really enjoyed, which, by the way, my cringe moment, I interviewed Siobhan, which Siobhan Purcell is she and her daughter Jade are the ones that put on this show, on the Ireland's publishing show. I had this amazing interview with Siobhan, and it didn't record. And so I have nothing on that. We'll have to just have her on the show at some point. But the other person that I really enjoyed, she was actually a friend I met in Vegas at Author Nation last year, Jill Mills. And so I thought she captured what the show was like in this clip. So I'm going to play that real quickly.
It's been much more attuned for an audience than you.
Oh, actually, let me start it.
I've learned so much. Like, every single content I do, but this one perfectly, because I felt I was talking to much more attuned for an audience than you were an audience put up for. And the amount of authors that were thinking to those, I really want to get to that talk because I want to know about AI amplifier. I want to know about how to make my video there. I said, selling my watches off. And I didn't really hear that for other companies do. They was kept becoming a little jaded, getting to the case slay, but it's not here. And so what I do is I sit and I would sponge up everything, the clever loss of management. They've figured out the market to have you sell your full. But I'm like, I take what you've learned and I apply it in what I do to get all the others back there. So with all due respect to the talk, the best takeaway for me was speaking to you guys after you come out of it. But what you've said a lot, Billy, you learn something in the talk and then you come out and you're ready to be like, how you're going to apply it. And I'm like, genius.
I'm sorry. I'm like, which button do I push to bring us back? She basically, in a nutshell, pointed out that it was the networking in between. The sessions were great, and then we'd come out of the sessions and talk about what we learned. She applied it to audiobooks because that's her area with Canopy audiobooks. But she was saying that we came out with such great ideas after seeing the talks that she was inspired just to sit there and kind of hold court in the networking space, which was really fun.
Okay. Absolutely. I mean, you just put a bunch of creative people in a room, had copious amounts of alcohol and free time, and see what blossoms, right? And that's basically what we had there in Shannon.
Yeah. Speaking of alcohol, I have to show you something. So we were actually there on St. Paddy's Day. We were not drunk at all. I don't think any of us actually got, but we had a bit on Guinness or two. This is you and me and our dear friend Adina. But this was the day before. I think this was St. Patrick's Day. Or maybe the day before, I can't remember. It's all a blur. But this made me laugh. This is Jill, the one that I just showed the clip of, and me. And this is the crowd. That's you with the nice glasses, and Adina's in there, and Jill, and a few. Oh, and Tom Donnelly. and I forget her name, Janika, something like that. Anyway, all of this to say, we had a really good time. And I think if people have the opportunity to go to a conference, we should definitely do it. I think there's something special about being in the space with other people who are also indie authors, working hard to learn together, play together, share ideas. Indie authors are very generous. Like Molly with her Wi-Fi here, that's how indie authors are. They share, without hesitation, what's working for them, what didn't work. And that's a really special thing.
Yeah, no, and that was one of the things that Tom, who was in that picture, said. His background is, he's a Hollywood screenwriter, I think, and he did a presentation on, how to introduce your book to Hollywood, and he was very honest and very candid that it's pretty intense, environment there. That's not as cooperative, right? And me coming from, the investment industry, that's also the case a lot of the time. So I think the way he described the indie author community was like being welcomed into the little Smurf village, right?
Yeah.
That's about right. Like, it's like, here's all our secrets. This is what we do. Welcome. As long as you're willing to work hard and, respect others. Yeah, I mean, it's something very unique as far as all the things I've experienced.
Yeah. I actually interviewed Tom, so we'll have him on in a future episode here. Yeah, I think that really summed it up because, having been in the mainstream media, there was a camaraderie. There's, a lot more coming together. But you also do see that, like, people are trying to get ahead for their own sake, and not necessarily like within the indie author space. I've met very few people. You do meet them occasionally, but very few people who are like, oh, I'm going to hoard it and hide it and keep it from you. It's more, hey, how can I help you? I was where you were just, a year ago or a few years ago, and what can I do to help you? Which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and I just the one thing that I'd say, and I don't think it's just anecdotal to me because I've heard other folks say it, is if your ambition is to go down this path, and you're new to the process, you need folks to mentor you and help you out. The one least common denominator I've seen is all of the great mentors I've had. Not one of them was trying to sell me their system or hiding behind a paywall. They were just professional writers who made the bulk of their living still selling fiction, so on the cutting edge, and they just took the time to share about some knowledge with me that someone had done for them in the past, right? And that I can't, like, there's 4 or 5 individuals. I know who they are. We met some of them at the conference again, and that's the one thing they have in common. Like, they didn't ask me to buy their books. They didn't ask me to sign up for their programs. Maybe I could buy them a beer or have dinner with them. But they just, if they click with you and they know you're willing to do work, I think they're just happy to add to the tribe. And that's a kind of a singularly unique experience from my background and what I've seen.
No, I'm sure, especially coming in from the finance side of things, or many other businesses as well. So what other, I'm trying to think of the different things that really stood out for me. One of the biggest things was Steve, and I don't know how to say his last name. I came away saying, I'm going to implement the things that Steve said. Steve was Atchinson, I think it was something like that. But he was talking about Facebook video for Facebook ads, not just Facebook ads, but Facebook video ads. And he showed us examples and some tips and tricks on that. So that was super helpful. I enjoyed the panel of powerful women. It was like, top earning women within very different genres. There was Dilly Ray, who does cozy mysteries. There was romance, Susie Quinn, and Claire. I don't know Claire's last name, but she does the lesbian romance, I think. And yeah, just a wide range of genres, but these women who are just killing it, they're 6-figure and up authors doing super well. And they're on a panel talking and sharing their wisdom, which I found very helpful and powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's great that our own Dini is one of them, right?
Yeah.
We live in the same city, so we shared a flight to the conference. And I was teasing her about because she's got the top rate. She's number 1 on the Amazon charts for cozy mysteries. And I was like, does this mean I have to carry your bag? Introduce me as I was like, are you going to introduce me as your gardener or your bodyguard? And so we were just laughing at that the whole conference.
Right.
But she's
And
wonderful.
she's so humble and amazing. I know.
100%.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that that's a perfect example of someone who, no matter what, she's willing to help, and you'd never know how well she's doing by just, talking to her at a conference. She doesn't shut people out. She's not like, oh, I'm, better than all of you. I mean, other than you being her porter, of course.
It's hard to find good help these days, Rosalinda.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it was an interesting time for me, and I will say, not to okay, how do I say this? There was some parts of the conference that weren't for me, and you know that because I don't do AI, and I did find my frustration was that there were times that there were sessions only AI and AI. I didn't have a choice to not do that. And I would have liked to see, put some session on craft that has nothing to do with AI or something like that, something that was a different option. That was, I had that. I basically had I don't even know if I can call it a complaint for that part, because that gave me an excuse to go take a nap, which I really needed at that point. But yeah, if I were to, because they have a form where you can fill out suggestions for improvement, and I would have said it would be nice to have something other than AI back to back. So that was one of my pieces. Any other feedback and the chairs were very uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, I mean, I and this is the feedback that I gave them. A headliner I call them English Steve and Scottish Steve, right?
Yes,
Both of those guys were off the charts, impressive. They should have both had the big room. I think one did and the other didn't. Right. So
yeah.
That's little. And also me, I always wanted more. I always want more coffee. Right. So I asked for them to have consistent coffee throughout, because you're really trying to pay attention to absorb all this knowledge, which can help your business. With the jet lag after like 3 or 4 hours of paying attention, you're like, yeah, I need caffeine.
Yeah.
Is there coffee somewhere around here?
That's always helpful. That's a good tip. And I will say I'm actually working on a post for my Substack about this part. The one thing that did bug me, there was a session, and it was a guy who was headlined, on a big stage, and he was talking about making tons of money, like a lot of money. He showed, I think it was like 900,000 pounds maybe, or euros, I don't know. This is a guy from Germany, and he basically took people through the process of, he had a whole bunch of pen names, which, no problem, people use pen names, but he had it sounds like he had dozens of them, and he created one to show people how to do this. And he wrote a book in 3 days using AI, pretended to be a Latina, a Brazilian female, and then published these books in 4 different languages using AI. And in 3 days, he, put these books out. And as a Latina female, I know it's different in different countries, but in U.S., for me, that is not okay. You do not pretend to be, I don't know. I think you should not pretend to be a woman. You should not pretend to be Latina. You should, and frankly, pretend to be an author. If you're using AI, you're not writing a book. And so, yeah, I'm sure there were people who enjoyed the session, I know, but I walked out, and I know several other people who said to me, like, what was that? And I'm like, I don't know. It was definitely inconsistent with what the spirit of the Indie Author Conference is. So that's my only complaint.
Well, I have two thoughts. One,
Which I didn't think I was going to talk about it on here, but, it is how I feel.
as a current resident of, Germany, I will say there are a lot of wonderful features here. But, what passes at times, and maybe it's a cultural thing for interpersonal skills here, is quite unique relative to most of the world. I mean, if you walk into a conference full of authors who put their heart and soul and sometimes decades into writing books and then figuring out how to market them, to the right audience with pitfalls and trials and tribulations, and you just go in and you're like, yeah, I just used technology and I acted like I was a Latina lady and I had the AI write my book and I spammed the site and I made all this money. Like, how do you expect to be received?
I don't know. I don't know. It really pushed me away.
I actually thought people were more gracious than I just didn't say it, which is
Yeah.
rare.
Well, and I look back and I think, okay, should I have stayed and said something? But that was the day when I hit the wall and I was like, okay, you know what? There's a time and a place. And the fact of the matter is, I know what I do. I can keep the integrity within my books and within my sphere of influence, and that's really all I can do. But yeah, it did irk me enough, and other people have brought it up to me too, so it wasn't just me.
Yeah, and then my second thought was, at the risk of being a little philosophical, one from the practical side. Well, if AI wrote his books, then he has to copyright.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone can take that
That's
work and
true.
sell it themselves, right? Not that I'm advocating
That's
anybody
true,
do that.
yes.
Because I prefer to read books by real Latina authors as opposed to German men with Latino author pen names using AI to write their books. But that's just me. And the other thing, and this got me thinking, like, if I take a step back, is it right for me to judge what's art? I mean, if somebody values that, he didn't hold a gun at anyone's head to buy those books.
Right, but the difference is, you're right, but then it should be clearly labeled that hey, I'm a white German man, and this is my art, right? This is not, hey, I'm a Brazilian first-time author, and in that first month he made 1,000 euros or something like that. Now, do you think all those people that bought that book thought they were buying it from a first-time Brazilian, and by the way, he had a picture of her. I would show it, but I'm not going to. And she looked, bright-faced, excited. She was standing in front of 20 books to 50K a screen. So it looked like she was at her first author conference, and she was so eager to share her craft. And it was an AI-generated image and an AI-generated everything. And to me, that's where I get like, we have friends, like one of the guys we interviewed, Ben Richardson, I think his name is, he uses AI to make videos, trailers, and things like that, films of people's books. And he and I rib each other a lot because he's like, oh, we're trying to convert me. He's trying to convert me. And he said, when I use his interview, I'm going to put horns on him and stuff. So like, there's this fun, playful banter between us. But in the end, he understands ethics. Most of the people that within the indie author space or any author space, they'll understand the difference between a tool that is being used to help a creator and a tool and essentially be the creator and pretend to be something you're not. So like that is, for me, that is where the line is. And I was like, should I be saying that on the show? But yeah, that I feel very strongly that there's a very big difference between using a tool that's helping you pull out the best of your creativity and share that with the world versus pretending to be something that you're not.
Yeah, that's the part I didn't quite catch because I wasn't actually, at the presentation because I thought one more interesting. Like I think we mentioned on previous episodes, there was an Australian lady last year who was very forthright about the fact that she used AI to write a ton of books and made a good amount of money. And, she got skewered by the New York Times for this, but she wasn't impersonating other folks. And, that part's rich.
Well, and I have to say, in full disclosure, I walked out. So maybe he went on to explain that he explained it and every person that bought the book knew. But I have a feeling that's not the case. We'll see.
Well, I don't think you accidentally wake up as a Latina female. I suppose it's possible.
Well, it didn't help that he went into, he started the talk with explaining all the failed tech ventures that he had tried. And this was just the latest way that he finally figured out he could make really good money this way. And so it's hard because it took me 25 years I wrote a screenplay and it took me 25 years to turn that into a novel. And that, that's life experience that turns into these books. And I am not, I cannot say that I begrudge someone else who does it shorter. Great. I'm writing my books now in 4 months or, 4 to 6 months. So yay, that's awesome. But 3 days, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I just wonder how good those could actually be. But,
AI is really good, supposedly. So maybe they're better than some of the books that take 20 years. Who knows? But I guess I just want people to have the choice to know. I want full disclosure. I want, if you're using it, awesome, then please say that. And, I just wrote an article a few weeks ago about AI feel-good stories where people are they're putting them out there as if they're real people and real scenarios, and they're not. And I wrote this whole article about why that's a problem because, it dilutes our own compassion toward real people when you go, oh, that's not really true. And then we're responsible for, am I sharing that and pretending like it's true? Now I'm continuing the lie. So really it's giving credit where credit is due and taking ownership and full disclosure of, what we're doing. So yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot in the coming weeks and months on this show. So what else? What else? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would emphasize that, we're talking about a squeaky little mouse episode of an awesome 2 or 3 day program where there was so much this overall,
You're so right.
One of the
and by the way, I already bought my tickets for next year. So yes, it's an amazing conference. I don't want anyone to think that, one session, and by the way, there's going to be a session at any conference that you're like, so remember that, don't not go to this conference because there was one guy. It's definitely worth it. And actually, compared to other conferences, I loved Author Nation. I loved 20 Books to 50K. I love conferences because I'm a social person. I'm an extrovert. But I would say a little conference, a relatively small conference like this, is much more intimate. And there's a lot that you can get from it if you have never been to an author conference. I recommend you start with a smaller one like that.
100%. I mean, I really enjoyed the 20 Books conferences. I haven't actually been to an Author Nation yet. The conferences that had the biggest impact on me were the smaller 20 Books conferences, particularly one in Amsterdam where I met Steve Higgs. I think there was the one in Seville where we were. And these are conferences, as opposed to the thousands of people in Vegas, 200 or 300 people, for a couple of days. It's much more relaxed, and you have a chance to actually talk to people on, in small groups and share information and learn what everybody's good at, because everybody's good at a different thing, right? That had a lot of value, and I think, at least for me, my opinion, something's been lost since 20 Books ended, right? And some of these small events like Seville and Now this Shannon conference that, is so well put together. Maybe it's starting to fill, at least on this side of the Atlantic, some of the void left by the end of 20 books.
Yeah, I do think so. And that's a good thing. And, it changes. The landscape changes from one conference to the next. And I'll keep going. I mean, and if nothing else, it gives me an excuse to see you and Adina and Steve and Christina and some of my other friends who I don't normally get to see, and Jill. So it's worth it. You kind of build your indie author tribe, don't you, by going not just the conferences, but you go to these events and then you continue that journey afterwards. Like, we communicate. That's how we ended up with the show, because we communicate regularly with our little friends that we met together. We kind of formed a group in Seville, the 20 books, and you just kind of continue that friendship. And so then the next time you go to a conference and see each other, it's just amazing to see them.
Yeah. And then they pick you is kind of the way it works for, different reasons. But there were some interesting conversations on practical aspects of the business as well. One really interesting session that I had afterwards was about the new A10 algorithm that Amazon is using. And new might not be the right word, because I think it's been around for a couple of years. But it's basically the mechanism or the algorithm that Amazon uses to determine how to route customers to your landing page for your books, right? And so I think one of the newsletter sites did a recent podcast on this, but I was talking to someone about, some of the changes to landing pages, an emphasis on reviews, and how this new algorithm is using reviews more than anything, more so than the past, and trying to maximize the amount of time potential customer spends on your Amazon book page, right? So whereas in the past, it was short and sweet, try not to create an objection to the sale if they're on their site. Now it's like, give them all sorts of stuff, try to keep them on the page as long as you can, have artwork for them to look at relating to your books. Like, one of the things which I thought was really interesting was they recommended kind of event descriptions for your book. By this, I mean, like, read Catalina Cruz when it's a quiet sunset in the New Mexico desert. It's like, okay, like, read my book, but I'm also going to tell you where and when to read my book.
So
is an interesting, right? So, but that's apparently what
so interesting.
The algorithm suggested, right? So we'll see how that
Yeah.
works. But,
Yeah, and now I'm drawing a blank, but the Stewart, the main sponsor for the show was, my brain, I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but they were amazing, and the guy that ran it, they do websites, and he had a session that was so good. And his name was Stewart, and why am I blanking on?
I think it was
the company was
digital.
Yes.
Toolkit. Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, they were awesome because they sponsored the show. They were the main sponsor, and he was very funny. And I went to the session, and he talked about maximizing your how to make your website. He said, write like a human. No, write as a human, but write for the robots, or something like that. A market for the robots, because that the way that they're looking at your website is so different than it used to be with Google search, and without this AI component of whether scrubbing or scouring your website in a totally different way. So yeah, that was a really good session. That actually was probably, that and Steve's were my two favorite sessions.
Yeah, and the funny thing was I had coffee with our tech wizard, Mr. Danny King.
Danny, yes.
And I talked to him about the website. Danny built his own website, which he showed us on And he looked at me and he's like, you know, in his lyrical Southern drawl, he's like, if you want, I can build you a website just to show you what it's like. And I'm like, is that a lot of work? He's like, no, I can do it about 2 hours. I was like,
Oh my God.
the bar's pretty high. We met this guy, Stuart. He's like, just give it a look. See what's when it
Amazing.
comes to anything technical, I don't bet against it.
He's so good. No, never bet against Danny. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have many more episodes to talk about all of this. I really appreciated the chance to get to see you in person and give you some green chili.
They took it, by the way. They took it.
Oh, wow.
Whatever the Irish version of TSA is, I was like, look, these are spices for my friend in New Mexico. I'm trying to get back into Germany because Germany doesn't have any spices at all. And you know, you can run it through all your detection devices and stuff. They're like, sorry, sir, it's too much liquid. You can't. So I said, well, whichever one of you can handle the spiciest chilies, take this home. Right.
I hope they did. I'd be so sad if it got thrown away. Oh, that's too bad. Well, rain check then. Hopefully we'll figure out how to get it to you next time. All right. With that, I think we're going to wrap this up. And thank you to Molly, who gave me her cell phone internet here at the Hampton Inn in Dublin. If she ever sees this show. And yeah, I'm glad we pulled it off. We had so many technical problems to make this work. So next time, same time, same place. Well, I'll be in a different place. But yeah, we'll see you all next week on Friends and Authors Live. I'm Rosalinda Roman.
I'm Ashvias.
And you are. I know, it's always so awkward. I never know, like, should I just say his name? All right. Bye, everyone.
But